I ask you to throw that in the...
Okay, anytime you want to go. Just tell me when we're live.
And we are live.
All right. Good morning, everybody. This is the November 17th, 2021 Coastal Permit Administrator hearing. And the Mendocino County Coastal Permit Administrator meetings will be conducted virtually and not available for in-person public participation pursuant to the State Executive Order N29-20. Meetings are live streamed and available for viewing on the Mendocino County YouTube page. All right, so to submit comments via telecom, a request form must be received by 7 a.m. the morning of the meeting. The telecomment form may be found on the county's webpage. And I will call the meeting to order at 9:01 a.m. And may I please get a determination of noticing?
Legal notice has been determined on each matter on the agenda.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to move the agenda around a little bit, and item number 5, which is matters from the public, I'm going to go ahead and move it up to this point. So basically, the Coastal Permit Administrator welcomes participation in meetings. This item is limited to the matters under the jurisdiction of the Coastal Permit Administrator, which are not on the posted agenda, and the items which have not already been considered by the Coastal Permit Administrator. And again, no action will be taken. So matters from the public. And do we have anybody signed up for telecomment for matters from public?
Admiral Weigel?
All right. Ms. Weibel, you are muted.
Hello. Am I speaking about number 2?
No, you are speaking under matters from the public.
But you may also address item number 2, the determination of noticing.
Okay, thank you so much. Can we start now since we're just clarifying what happened?
Go ahead.
Yeah. Good morning. I would like to bring to your attention that what's on the road doesn't have a date on the notice of pending permit. There was only one notice of pending permit for one of the projects and no dates. And also, there was no notification at the Albion Post Office, Elk Store, or Albion Store. Many of the people who attended, about 100 people attended the meeting on September 19th, 2019, where Caltrans was talking about Navarro Ridge safety and Navarro Ridge drainage and other issues. Attended that meeting and signed into sign-in sheets and were not notified. Many people were not notified that are within 300 feet of the area, and which includes also the 300-foot buffer surrounding it. And that's actually something that Julia Acker brought to the attention of Caltrans after she informed them that they didn't have a complete application. Also, she brought to the attention that then again, at that time, the declaration of posting didn't have a date. So the meeting that was attended on September 19th, 2019 by about 100 people, 88 got invited, but with the press and everybody, so the sign-in sheets disappeared very quickly. They ran out, and people created our own sign-in sheets, and all these people were not notified. So it seems that the Albion Bridge Stewards, which I'm a member of, we weren't notified, and so it does seem to me that you don't really have check off that
30
box
seconds.
to,
30 seconds. Keep going.
oh, sorry, so, yeah, I'm gonna stop at this point. Thank you.
All right, and then I was just notified as well that Mr. Norbert Dahl has also requested to speak on this item, so if we could bring.
And again, clarification, minutes to speak.
There, oh, you just had him at the top.
All
There you
right.
go.
Mr. Dahl, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Norbert Dahl on behalf of Maria Hansen, a property owner affected significantly by these two projects, and the class of interested persons known to Caltrans to be such interested persons in both the Navarro Ridge and the Navarro Drainage projects. Mr. Chairman, allow me to quickly summarize my comments, but they are very material, and I requested to speak on your item 2, which is a public hearing item under law. So first, due and proper 10-day advance public notice of today's items 3B and 3C has not been given to Ms. Hansen and to the class of interested persons in the two projects. And they've been known to Caltrans as being interested persons since at least 2019 and subsequently. And for that reason, for that lack of notice to these known interested persons and property owners, which includes all property owners that have access to Highway 1 and along it only through the project areas. For the lack of proper notice to all these folks, these two items are not properly before you for decision today. As you recall, the board, when it transmitted the county's local coastal program, coastal element to the Coastal Commission in the 1980s, resolved and certified that the county would implement the local coastal program fully in conformity with the Coastal Act as required by Section 30,510A. A key component of the Coastal Act in Section 30,006 is the declaration of rights that the public be afforded maximum opportunities for understanding of and participation in coastal permit decision-making. Now, as you know, Certified Coastal Zoning Ordinance Section 20,532-025 Subpart F requires the applicant, here Caltrans, in both items 3B and 3C, to include in its application to the county for the coastal permits a list of names and addresses of all parties, in addition to property owners within 300 feet and occupants within 100 feet. May I conclude? I am presently apparently muted.
No, we're able to hear you.
Thank you. A red sign came on that said I was muted. So again, the requirement under the coastal zoning ordinance section is very clear. Property owners within 300 feet of the perimeter of the parcels, the legal parcels, on which Caltrans proposes to perform development, occupants within 100 feet of that perimeter, and all known interested persons to Caltrans.
So that is your time, Mr.
I
Dahl.
beg your pardon?
That is the 3 minutes for your public comment. That was the
Okay.
timer.
What I'm going to do, Mr. Chairman, with your indulgence, I'm going to transmit in writing the text of my statement, and I would request respectfully that it be entered into the record under item 2. This is not a public comment item. This is a comment pursuant to item 2 and the public hearing that state law requires be afforded under it. So with your concurrence, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Administrator, I will transmit this to you, to Ms. Krogh, and to Council Kudrowski momentarily.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
And I would like to just briefly address the comments that came in about noticing for specifically items 3B and 3C on the agenda. And staff has reviewed the noticing completed, and I understand that there were community meetings held, but no individuals beyond those that were notified requested to be notified, which is what is required by 20.536010 C of County Code. So with that, staff does still believe that there was proper notice established for these items.
Thank you very much for that clarification. All right, is there anyone else who signed up for telecomment?
I did not receive any.
All right, so we will move to the regular calendar, and we're going to go ahead and hear item 3A, which is CDP 2019-0003. And this is a continued item from October 28, 2021. The owner applicant is Samuel and Patricia Carpenar. The request is a standard coastal development permit to allow for alterations to the existing single-family residence, including demolition of existing accessory storage building, addition of a master family residence, addition of a master suite, great room, storage room, unconditioned corridor, and the expansion of an existing garage. This is also a request to build a 1,502 square foot structure to contain 520 square feet family care unit and 982 square feet of boat and car garage. Additionally, new septic system associated with rainwater, cisterns, electrical panel upgrades, and solar photovoltaics would be built. An existing 6-foot fence is also requested to be relocated inside the property. It has been determined that this is categorically exempt from CEQA. The project is located within the coastal zone, 3.2 miles south of Fort Bragg Town Center, lying on the north side of Pacific Way, 0.25 plus minus miles west of its intersection with Ocean Drive. Property is located at 33,400 Pacific Way in Fort Bragg. Assessor's parcel number 017-320-11. May I please get a staff report?
Sure. Sam Vandy Vandewater, Senior Planner. As you noted, this project was continued on October 28th from the last meeting due to comments received from the Coastal Commission expressing concern for the family care unit and that adequate water supply studies had not been completed prior to the request in the submittal of the CDP. Therefore, the applicants have amended their request, and I'll read that for the record. So the new amended request states a standard coastal development permit to allow for alterations to the existing single-family residence, including demolition of existing storage building, addition of a master suite, great room, storage room, unconditioned corridor, and expansion of the existing garage. This request is also to build a roughly 1,500 square foot structure to contain a boat and car garage. Additionally, a new septic system, associated rainwater cisterns, electrical panel upgrade, and solar photovoltaics shall be built, as well as relocation of an existing 6-foot fence. The amended staff report, both a red line and clean version, was provided in a memo this morning. But to go through the project, this is located, as you noted, about 3 miles south of Fort Bragg on the north side of Pacific Way. The parcel is currently developed with a single-family residence, a garage, and a well as driveway. With the amended request, county staff finds that the project still is consistent with the local coastal program, including land use and zoning regulations. The parcel is not located within a highly scenic and would not impact visual resources. The project does not entail any hazardous materials or is not in any location that would be subject to hazardous materials. There are no biological resources identified on the site, and the project went through the Archaeological Commission, which found that a survey was not required at this time. Minimal grading will be required, but a condition has been included to ensure that the best management practices will be used. For groundwater resources, this section was amended to reflect the removal of the family care unit, and due to the lack of density increasing, there is no additional water testing requirement necessary. And lastly, the project does not impact transportation or public access and is consistent with those two components of the coastal element and the LCP. With regard to environmental determination, the project was found to be categorically exempt under a Class 3 exemption for additions to an existing, additions to an existing single-family residence and associated accessory structures. The project has been found to be consistent with all the necessary findings as outlined in the Mendocino County Code. And with that, staff recommends approval of the amended project with conditions.
Thank you very much. So the real quick question for staff is, we did get comment back from the Coastal Commission based on the revision.
No, not at this time, no. They did not comment on what we have revised. They just simply, at the October 28th meeting, they provided comment, providing the applicants with two separate options. The applicant chose one of the options, which was to remove the family care unit from the request.
Okay, so basically, the revision is in response to those comments from October.
Correct.
All right, thank you. Do we have the project applicants, property owners
Yes, we do.
online?
Hi, Patty. If you're on a phone, it's star. Oh, never
Hi.
mind.
This is Patty and Sam Karapanar. Hello.
Hello, good morning. Do you have any questions, comments as the property owner, project proponent on this?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, do we have anybody that wishes to speak on this matter? Anybody from the public?
I haven't received any public comment on this one.
No public comment on this one. All right, so I'll bring it back to the Coastal Permit Administrator. So I have reviewed the revisions to the project. Thank you very much for including the red line and the additions and deletions. So that makes it really easy. So seeing no objections, I'm going to go ahead and move to approve the project pursuant to the findings contained in the staff report and the modified conditions of approval.
Thank you.
All right, so. Next on the agenda. I'm looking for my agenda.
That's why I was offering you this one if you want.
Oh, no, I've got my, here it is. No, what do I do with it? Oh, here it is. Thank you. So the next, what we're going to do is we're going to take the items out of order. And I'm going to hear item 3C. And that will now be item number 2. And this is CDP 2019-0034. The owner applicant is the California Department of Transportation, Caltrans. Agent is Frank Demling. The request is a standard coastal development permit to upgrade and repair approximately 0.1 miles of State Highway Route 1 by relocating the drainage system to the natural channel, repairing failed roadway embankment, side slope, and the embankment adjacent to the existing private driveway, improving the roadway geometry and increase the roadway travel lanes to 12 feet each way, and increase paving shoulders to 4 feet wide within the project limits. This has been, the determination is categorically exempt, and we are relying on staff correct me, but this is a previous environmental document?
Yes, Caltrans is the lead agency on this.
Thank you. So this application is located within the coastal zone along State Route 1, near its intersection with Navarro Ridge Road, between post miles 42.35 and 42.45. May I please get a staff report?
Sure.
And
Good
so-
morning, Go ahead.
No, I was just going to go ahead and introduce with us today the project coordinator for this project has been Scott Perkins with SHN Engineers, and so we have him available on the line, and he'll be doing the presentation this morning.
Thank you. Mr. Perkins, go right ahead.
All right, thank you. Good morning, Mr. Administrator. I'm going to present the staff report here for CDP 2019-0034. In addition to the project description, the brief project description that you read introducing the item, additionally, the existing culvert would be removed and a new 36-inch diameter culvert would be installed connecting the drainage inlet on the east side of State Route 1 and extending to a 36-inch down drain on the west side of State Route 1. The culvert inlet would remain in the same place and the outlet would be relocated approximately 30 feet to the south for better alignment with the natural channel, requiring approximately 30 feet of existing channel to be filled. A 28 by 9 foot rock energy dissipator would be installed at the outlet. The roadway, embankment side slopes, and the embankment of a private driveway would be repaired and revegetated. Environmentally sensitive habitat areas are delineated on the project plans with temporary high visibility fencing and will be included in the contract plans to indicate areas that are off limits to contractors. PG&E and AT&T have existing utilities within the project limits, which will be permanently relocated from the west side of State Route 1 to the east side of State Route 1. 3 tree stumps are to be removed within the right-of-way, and 2 additional stumps would be removed within the temporary construction easement, and 3 wax myrtle trees would be removed within the permanent drainage easement. A minimum of 12 feet of paved roadway would remain open for use to public traffic, and bicyclists would be accommodated through the work zone. Construction staging would be in turnouts on the east and west side of State Route 1 within the right-of-way at approximate post miles 42.35 and 42.45. Additional items within the project scope include improvement of super elevation, restriping, installation of edgeline and centerline rumble strips, and dike replacement. On August 2nd, 2021, project referrals were sent to responsible or trustee agencies with jurisdiction over the project. Comments received from the Air Quality Management District, Sonoma State University's Northwest Information Center, the Archaeological Commission, and CDFW were incorporated into the permit analysis. Caltrans submitted numerous resource studies evaluating the project's potential to affect habitats and natural resources. These documents include a natural environment study, Escher assessment, Navarro drainage report of Escher compliance, and a revegetation plan for the Navarro drainage project. Studies were conducted within the project area and within a 100-foot buffer around the project. 4 Eschers were identified, 1 3-parameter wetland and 3 other waters or drainages. The biologic resource surveys identified Bishop pines near the project, and while Bishop pine forest is considered Escher, the study determined that the Bishop pines are mixed with non-native Monterey pines, were planted as a visual break by an adjacent landowner, and as a result, the study concluded that the Bishop pines were not considered Escher. Mendocino County Code Section 20.496 applies to development proximate to Escher. Specifically, the code includes standards for determining the appropriate width when 100 feet cannot be maintained. And the code includes standards for development that is proposed within these Escher buffers. Caltrans submitted a reduced buffer analysis as part of the Escher assessment and supplemented by the Escher report of compliance. The reduced buffer analysis concludes that with standard avoidance and minimization measures, the development would have minimal to no permanent impacts and is consistent with the county's Escher standards. Work would occur within 2 drainages, and work would occur directly adjacent to the 3-parameter wetland and the 1 remaining drainage. This would result in no buffers from the 4 Eschers. The reduced buffer analysis addresses the code requirements for development permitted within buffer areas, concluding that the proposed work is compatible with the continuance of the habitat by maintaining its functional capacity. Specifically, the report states that the project would result in an overall improvement of the drainage feature by realigning it with its natural channel. Additionally, the report concludes that the work would be conducted within or adjacent to the existing roadway, making the proposed alternative the least environmentally damaging option. The proposed project would not interfere with the hydrologic processes or biological diversity upon completion of the proposed construction. County code specifies the types of development that can occur within Escher types. The proposed project would require work within other waters or drainages and immediately adjacent to wetland. County code permits pipelines, utility lines, and road and trail crossings only when no less environmentally damaging alternative route is feasible within riparian and wetland Eschers. The proposed roadway and drainage repairs are within or adjacent to the existing roadway, and the Escher assessment asserts that no less environmentally damaging alternative location is feasible. As a result, the project is consistent with the limited development allowances within or adjacent to wetland or other water Eschers. The Escher assessment relies on proposed avoidance and minimization measures to reduce impacts to Escher and mitigate unavoidable impacts. The Escher assessment includes section 1.3 and 3.5 with standard measures, BMPs, and avoidance and minimization efforts to protect water quality, wetlands and other waters, natural communities, animal species, and includes measures to limit the spread of invasive species. Section 3.5 of the Escher assessment recommends revegetation measures to address temporary impacts to the Escher. These measures include adherence to Caltrans Construction Site Best Management Practices Manual, submission of a water pollution control plan to address BMP inspections, spill prevention, and waste management. Also, the measures require adherence to the Revegetation Plan and inspection and cleaning of construction equipment to limit introduction of invasive species. Similar avoidance and minimization measures are included in the submitted natural environment study. Section 1.4 include BMPs to protect water quality, wetlands, other waters, natural communities, animal species, and limit the spread of invasive species. Sections 4 through 8 of the Revegetation Plan include revegetation goals, a summary of revegetation activities, an implementation of maintenance schedule, monitoring methods, criteria, and reporting requirements, and remedial measures. These approaches to revegetation are proposed to implement BMPs described in the other resource documents and to ensure consistency with county code policies regarding development in Escher. The project and the supporting documentation were supplied to CDFW for review and concurrence, as county code requires CDFW concur that a 100-foot buffer is not necessary to protect site-specific resources from significant disruption. On September 10th, 2021, CDFW Senior Environmental Scientist Jennifer Olson responded that the revegetation and monitoring plan, which was recommended by the Escher assessment, be revised to ensure that revegetation has a 100% success criteria for new plantings. On October 4th, Caltrans supplied the county and CDFW with a revised revegetation plan with 100% success criteria for new plantings at year 5. The document was referred to CDFW for further review, and Ms. Olson responded that they had no further comments or concerns related to the revegetation plan. Special condition 11 is included in the staff report and recommended as part of the approval that references these avoidance and minimization measures within the various resource studies, thereby requiring Caltrans to implement the project consistent with these practices to ensure consistency with the Escher policies and county code. Regarding access, the project is located on State Route 1, a public roadway with pullouts providing public views to the sea. The project will maintain a minimum 12 feet wide paved roadway open for use by public traffic and bicyclists, would be accommodated through the work zone. As a result, the project will have temporary impacts to public access along State Route 1, and there would be no permanent impacts to circulation. County code requires offers to dedicate easements for public access be recorded prior to issuance of CDPs in areas identified in Chapter 4 of the coastal element, unless these accesses have already been otherwise secured. Chapter 4.9 of the coastal element identifies this area as between Dark Gulch and the Navarro River and requires a blufftop trail along the Navarro headlands west of Navarro Ridge Road. This required access is currently provided, the existing public access at Noyo Point Preserve, which will be maintained during and after construction. The proposed project is exempt from CAL FIRE requirements and will not result in increased fire danger in any project locations. County Code Section 20.500 requires applicants submit geologic investigations as part of CDP applications in areas of known or potential geologic hazards delineated on county hazard maps. The LCP land capabilities and natural hazards map shows the project to be largely in an area designated as present development non-critical. Areas west of the northern extent of the project are mapped in an area of intermediate shaking regarding seismicity. These designations show the project outside an area of known or potential geologic hazards, and therefore no further geologic investigation was required. Regarding grading, the project will result in a total export of approximately 221 cubic yards of material. The applicant states that excess fill material will be hauled off and disposed by the construction contractor. Special condition 9 is recommended to show compliance with this requirement as submitted to the Caltrans resident engineer and to Mendocino County. Erosion control methods include hydroseeding bare soil areas at the end of construction consistent with the plan set, and additional revegetation efforts will be implemented consistent with the revegetation plan already discussed. Caltrans prepared an archaeological survey report for the project area in January of 2018, which concluded that no new or previously identified cultural resources are present within the area of potential effect, and the project has no potential to affect historic properties. In August 2021, the Sonoma State Northwest Information Center responded that after reviewing the documentation for the project, no additional studies were warranted. Northwest Information Center did provide recommendations, commonly referred to as the discovery clause, and recommended the county contact local native tribes regarding resources in the area. The county referred the project to the Cloverdale Rancheria, Redwood Valley Rancheria, and Sherwood Valley Band of Pomo for additional comment, and the notified tribes did not provide responses. With the Northwest Information Center recommended conditions of approval, which are special condition 8 in the staff report, the project is consistent with Mendocino County's policies for protection of paleontological and archaeological resources. Regarding transportation and circulation, the project would widen and improve the existing roadway. However, the project would not increase the number of lanes, nor would it create or alter any land use that would cause an increase in traffic volume on the existing roadway. The project would provide improved circulation by improving drainage, preventing future roadway failures. Again, during construction, Caltrans will keep one lane open and bicycles will be accommodated through the work site. The entire project is located proximate to a mapped highly scenic area. County Code's development criteria for highly scenic areas require projects protect coastal views from public areas, limit development to less than 18 feet above natural grade, and requires new development be subordinate to the natural setting. The proposed roadway improvements would be constructed well below the required height maximums in highly scenic areas. Reflective surfaces are not proposed as part of the project, and the improvement will be consistent with the existing condition of the 2-lane roadway. For the purposes of CEQA, as already discussed, Caltrans is the lead agency, meaning Caltrans has the primary responsibility for carrying out or approving a project. Mendocino County is a responsible agency with the responsibility for carrying out or approving a project. As lead agency, Caltrans determined the project is categorically exempt from CEQA under section 15301, class 1D, which applies to restoration or rehabilitation of damaged structures, facilities, or equipment to meet current standards of public health and safety. The Caltrans notice of exemption is included as an attachment to the staff report. As a result of the analysis, staff recommends the coastal permit administrator grant the requested coastal development permit for the project as proposed by the applicant and based on the facts and findings and subject to the conditions of approval. I'm available to try to answer any questions that may come up, and I believe Julia as well if the questions involve more of process as opposed to the project.
Thank you very much. It's a very thorough staff report. Thank you. I'll now hear from the project applicant, Caltrans, or anybody with Caltrans present.
We have numerous individuals from Caltrans present, so we'll bring them in here just sort of one at a time. I would recommend starting with Frank Demling.
All right, Mr. Demling, you are...
Up top. Raise hand.
Mr. Demling, you are on. You're currently muted. There you go.
Thank you, Mr. Administrator. Yes, this is Frank Demling representing the applicant as the project manager. I would like to introduce some of our team members here today. We have Tariq Sheshi, who's the now the project manager, registered civil engineer. John McKean, who's our project engineer, is also present. Charlie Narwald, our certified engineering geologist. Jeff Wright, who is our area construction engineer, Liza Walker, who's our senior environmental planner, Stephen Umbertus, the environmental planner responsible for planning and carrying out the details for the studies in this area, and then Reed Crane, who is the project biologist, environmental planner with Caltrans, whose primary duties included conducting the protocol level surveys, resource inventories, et cetera. So I'd like to thank the county for such a very comprehensive review of the application materials, great staff report, factual. We agree with the county's findings that the development is in conformity with the certified local program. We also concur with the county's findings that the proposed development would not have any adverse impact on any known archaeological or paleontological resources, and that the proposed development would not diminish public access to Mendocino coastal areas. We also agree with the county's findings that the proposed development is consistent with Escher policies that require the resources as identified will not be significantly degraded by the proposed development, and that there are no feasible, less environmentally damaging alternatives, and all feasible mitigation measures capable of reducing or eliminating project-related impacts have been adopted. So we can take questions. We have the team here. We'll just wait for any inquiries from staff or public comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Demling. So with that, I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing, and we'll hear from the public. And then if there's any questions that Caltrans needs to answer, I'll go ahead and bring Caltrans back in. So do we have any people anyone from the public?
I just want to state this statement before we start. This is the point where we address any telecommenters that have been submitted their forms and are waiting in line. Clerk will read the list in order and call the next speaker. When called upon to speak, please state your name for the record. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per person. Speakers are asked to address the comments to the CPA and refrain from using any profanity or engaging in conversation with members of the audience or staff. You will be given a 30-second warning once your time is running out. I'll call the first 3 names: Madeline Glickfield, Jacob Patterson, and Norbert Dahl.
This is Madeline Dahl. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Thank you for calling me. I guess Norbert Dahl called you Your Honor, so I will follow in that respect. I am the owner of the property at 2050 North Highway 1. The property is. I sent you a fairly thorough documentation of what has transpired there over the last 23 years. And I want it to be very clear to you that all of the work that's being done is the best that can be done with Caltrans safety standards to restore the damage that was created by Caltrans in 1998. If you're old enough to recall, in December 1998, the coast was hit with terrible El Nino storms. In the middle of the night, at midnight, I ran out to see Caltrans was there with an emergency permit to divert the stream, the underground storm drain. They couldn't get into the existing one. It was too unsafe for anybody to enter it. They couldn't fix it. And what they did is they put in a new one that spilled out about 30 feet to the north and had to make a right turn across an embankment and then make a left turn to get into the stream itself. The bank itself became unstable and had to be filled with rock. I protested that. The rock subsequently ended up in the stream. Every time they put rock in there, it migrated. We have had then since many feet of erosion on both sides of the stream. It's very, very wide now compared to the way it was.
we have had to the point where it's endangering our driveway. And also there's been an extensive invasion of invasive species and a real degradation of the species. In addition, the Coastal Conservancy and Mendocino Land Trust received had been seeking access easements to put in the coastal trail, and they were intending on bridging the creek. And it's no longer possible to do that. So I urge you, sir, to consider this project solely a remediation of the damage that Caltrans caused. I have been trying for 23 years to get it fixed, and this is the first opportunity I've had, and I am asking for your approval of the project so that they can proceed to do the restoration. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Next, we'll have Jacob Patterson, followed by Norbert Dahl and Stephanie Dahl.
Hi, it's Jacob Patterson. I already submitted a written comment, so I don't have a lot to say, but I think there's a lot of good that can be done related to this project in line with what the previous speaker said. But I do have some procedural concerns related to reliance on the categorical exemption, and that I think should be addressed before it's approved. I also wanted to draw your attention to some of the other public comments, including public comment from the Coastal Commission about additional clarification, and potentially recommend that you add some additional special conditions to address and ensure that aspects of the project are dealt with. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next, we'll have Norbert Dahl, followed by Stephanie Dahl and Charlie Norwald.
Oh, Charlie is a part of the agent group.
Oh, he is? Oh,
Yes.
sorry. Okay.
So then it looks like it'd be Anne Marie after that.
And then Anna Marie Weigel after that. So we're going to Norbert. He's probably at the top.
With his hair
Yep.
raised.
I was apparently muted and that just popped up, so I'll begin again. Good morning, Your Honor. Norbert Dahl for adjacent property owner Maria Hansen and her husband Miguel Ilac. Ms. Hansen has previously submitted written comments on this matter and now also incorporates the written comments from the Albion Bridge stewards that you received yesterday. First of all, thank you for this opportunity to testify in this quasi-judicial proceeding. Our client respectfully asks Mr. Gonzalez that because it is a quasi-judicial proceeding, that you disclose any ex parte communications that you may have had in regard to this matter. Next, Caltrans's incomplete 2019 application for Coastal Permit 2019-34 became withdrawn by operation of law under Coastal Zoning Ordinance Section 20.532.040F in August 2020, and therefore is not before you today and is not available for your action as staff recommends it. Next, however, if by some magic the application were before you, you are required by the LCP and the Coastal Act to deny it, with all due respect to our longtime colleague, Madeline Gluckfeld. And that is, number one, there is no valid environmental document for this project. The Class 1D categorical exemption that Caltrans has put on the table is on its face inapplicable. Number two, the project area is in a 23-year-old violation zone for development that Caltrans performed, inappropriate development, one might add, as Ms. Glickfeld's own hydrologist has pointed out, because Caltrans failed to obtain the required regular coastal permit to follow up on the emergency permit that was granted in 1998.
30 seconds.
The project is not an incidental public service project, therefore does not qualify for the exemptions that your staff proposes from the wetland rules. 4, the project fails to implement the LCP's and the Coastal Act's public access requirements. And finally, the project has an environmentally preferred alternative, which, as the hydrologist pointed out in writings to you,
Time.
Thank you very much. And for the record, I have had no ex parte communication on any of the items on the agenda. Thank you. Next.
We have Stephanie Dahl, followed by Anna Marie Weibel.
No, there.
Is that her?
Oh, there,
She
raised.
raised her hand.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Super. Stephanie Dahl, I actually did not intend to sign up for this item, but thank you for allowing me to speak because Mrs. Engelhardt, who is concerned about this as well as 024, is concerned on several points. The first is the failure to provide a true environmental analysis as to how what is happening with respect to the drainage project meshes with what is being proposed for the adjacent safety project, because they appear to be a single project. And that single project addresses both drainage and road widening along and over Navarro Ridge, which is not broken into separate parts, but is a single natural landform and should be addressed as such in terms of both cumulative effects and alternatives that might be available. Those alternatives have not been available to the public, and Mrs. Engelhardt has not reviewed them, nor has her fellow trustee, and is very interested in making sure that the problem that Ms. Glickfeld so well explained, that definitely needs to be addressed, is addressed in a way that we won't be coming back 20 years from now having to remediate because it wasn't done correctly. And with that, the only other comment I have is that while my partner, who is speaking on behalf of the ELAC Hansen ownership, discussed noticing with respect to their parties, their interested party status, he failed to point out that they are within the 300-foot notice area for this project and received no such notice. And that 300-foot noticing requirement would take in other properties also, since roadways are not included in the 300 feet. And finally, it appears that the notice list provided by Caltrans only provided owners within 100 feet of this project, whereas certainly my experience with the county in knocking down 3 dead trees was that everyone within 300 feet required notice. So with that, thank you.
And the last person is Anna Marie Weibel. Hey, Ms. Weibel, you can go ahead and go.
Hi. Yeah, you mentioned the last person, but I thought you mentioned earlier that a person with the name of Maria was going to speak. So I'll let you figure that out. I urge you to deny this application. No information was included that would justify widening the road and the shoulders. This revised project is still incomplete, a bit ambiguous and inaccurate. It needs an EIR, and the exemption does not relate to this situation. There's a cumulative significant effect from this project and others next to it. Just, the one was 24, as well as all the other projects that Caltrans intends to do in the immediate area and going all the way up to Richardson Grove and Gualala and Marin County and so on. They should be dealt with at the same time as one project, like Ms. Dahl mentioned. And so if people would be stuck in traffic, if it's done at the same time, then that makes it a bigger problem. And also that the cumulative aspect is very big as far as the environment, the scenic resources. Also, we had no responses from Native American tribes, but they did respond with concerns to the Kirkman property, which is next to it. And so it's not just temporary impact, it's long-term impacts. And there need to be less environmentally damaging alternatives. The barren silver spot butterflies were not seen apparently, but the biological studies are 2 to 4 years out of date. And it has a huge impact on wetlands, waters, riparian areas. That's where you have a lot of wildlife and endangered and threatened species. And don't tell us afterwards how many trees you cut. That's not acceptable. And so the height of 52 feet about the roadway would destroy the scenic resource and would not qualify for an exemption. And the outdated traffic management plans are a problem. The rumble strips are one. Also, erosion planting doesn't happen often.
Time's up.
Do we have anybody else that signed up?
That's it on that.
All right, thank you. At this point, does staff have any closing comments?
I think only if there's any questions that were brought up by the public that you'd like us to address specifically, but otherwise I think we've presented the project.
Thank you. Mr. Demling, do you have any closing comments?
Yes, I actually do. I do think it is important to note that this project does constitute a single and complete project. It has independent utility in that it would be constructed absent the construction of other projects in the project area. The other point I'd like to make here regarding comments that have been made by Dahl and Associates and Anne-Marie Weibel is that, for what has been presented today, we find that a lot of these comments are without foundation. They're groundless, they're inaccurate, they're unscientific, and they have no basis in fact or reality. And frankly, I think the comments are biased, they're misleading, and they're really intended to promote their cause to stop or obstruct Caltrans from delivering safe, sustainable, integrated, and efficient projects along the Mendocino coast. We support staff's recommendations to approve this project. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, I'm going to go ahead and bring it back to the Coastal Permit Administrator. I have reviewed the evidence provided to me in both the staff report, the attached studies, and documents submitted with the application, as well as the testimony heard here today. And based on what I've seen here and heard, I'm going to go ahead and move to approve the project subject to the findings contained in the staff report as well as the conditions of approval. Thank you very much. All right, so that brings us to the next item, which is 3B. This is CDP 2019-0024. The applicant again is the California Department of Transportation, Caltrans. Agent is Frank Demling. This is a request for a standard coastal development permit to make safety improvements and perform rehabilitation on State Route 1 from post mile 41.78 and post mile 42.3. The project proposes to widen the existing lanes to 12 feet each, widen the existing shoulders in both directions to 4 feet, install a Midwest guardrail system, MGS, treated with light brown stain, improved the super elevation, reestablished the drainage facilities, and a 6-foot box culvert for wildlife passage. Replace the centerline rumble strip and remove up to 75 trees. The project is categorically exempt and is within the coastal zone along State Route 1, just south of its intersection with Navarro Ridge Road, between post miles 41.78 and 42.3. Staging is proposed at 42.4 post mile. And ma'am, please get a staff report.
And so again, Julia Krog, Assistant Director, we had Scott Perkins with SHN Engineers, who is our project coordinator for this project. And so I'm going to turn the presentation over to him.
Thank you.
All right, thank you again. In addition to the brief project description you read from the introduction, I'd like to add also that the project proposes grading that would require the removal of approximately 14,000 cubic yards of material. 3,800 cubic yards approximately, of which would provide fill for the shoulder extension on the west side of the road. And the remaining approximately 10,200 cubic yards of material would be hauled off site to an approved disposal site. The project proposes temporary BMPs to be implemented during construction, including silt fencing, fiber rolls, high visibility fencing, street sweeping, stabilizing construction entrances and exits, gravel bag berms, and concrete washouts. Traffic control, similar to the last project, would keep a minimum 12 feet wide of paved roadway open for public traffic, and cyclists would be accommodated through the work zone. Access to side roads, which includes access to the public Navarro Point Preserve parking lot and to residences, would be maintained at all times. The proposed improvements to the drainage facilities were evaluated by a Caltrans final drainage report to confirm that they have capacity to handle runoff from 10-year and 100-year storm events. Referrals were sent to agencies on August 2nd, 2021, and the responses provided were incorporated into the analysis. Caltrans submitted a Navarro Safety Project Natural Environment Study and an addendum, an Escher assessment for the project, an Escher correction memo, an Escher report of compliance, an on-site revegetation plan, and a rare plant memo or letter to address biological resources and Eschers that the project has the potential to impact. These studies were conducted within the project area in a 100-foot buffer around the project. Overall, 20 Eschers were identified within 100 feet of project activities. Development would occur within 10 of these Eschers where buffers are infeasible. The development would occur within only waters and drainages of those 10 Eschers. Reduced buffers are required for 9 of the Eschers, and the project can maintain a 100-foot buffer from one of the Eschers. The project would remove up to 75 trees, 12 of which were bishop pines. Similar to the last project, they were evaluated and not considered Escher as they're mixed with Monterey pines and planted by landowners for privacy. 62 of the trees are located within the right-of-way, and the remaining 13 trees would be removed within temporary construction easements. The project was evaluated for consistency with County Code Section 2496 as it relates to development proximate to Escher. The Escher report of compliance and the Escher assessment included a reduced buffer analysis for the 19 Eschers that cannot maintain a 100-foot buffer. The reduced buffer analysis concludes that some Eschers would be directly impacted by construction, but impacts would be avoided through the use of temporary high visibility fencing and other avoidance and minimization measures. These other measures will be discussed shortly and are included as approval conditions for the project. Per the Escher reports, the Eschers in the project area have low biological value since the waters associated with the impact do not support salmonids or other sensitive species, concluding that sensitive species would not be disturbed by the project. County code also recommends that existing features such as roads and dikes shall be used where feasible to buffer habitat areas, and the proposed project utilizes the existing roadway and existing turnout areas for construction activities, consistent with the standard for determining appropriate buffer width. The Escher assessment addresses how the project is consistent with code requirements for development within buffers or within buffer areas and within Eschers. The report states that no other feasible site is available to perform the work within Escher buffer, since all work would be conducted within or adjacent to the existing developed roadway. The report concludes that the work would maintain and improve existing drainage patterns, and the Eschers would maintain their functional capacity and maintain natural species diversity. Finally, the reports state that all disturbed areas would be revegetated appropriately. Caltrans provided an on-site revegetation plan dated October 2021 that proposes to restore areas surrounding waters of the United States impacted by construction using specific regionally appropriate native seed mix, and would also limit introduction of invasive species. The revegetation plan includes monitoring methods, success criteria, and reporting requirements. Monitoring is to occur annually. The revegetation plan requires monitoring reports be submitted for years 1 and 3 and must address whether the success criteria are met and whether remedial actions are needed. The revegetation plan was reviewed by CDFW in October 2021 and concluded that the disturbed areas would be revegetated appropriately. The Escher assessment addresses the county's standards for reduction of Escher buffers and development within Eschers. And the Escher assessment concludes that the proposed work would be consistent with the county's Escher requirements with the utilization of those recommended avoidance and minimization measures. Regarding work within Escher, county code specifies the type of development that can occur within certain Escher types. The proposed project would require work within drainages and adjacent to wetland. And Mendocino County Code permits pipelines, utility lines, and road and trail crossings when no less environmentally damaging alternative route is feasible. The proposed roadway and drainage repairs are within or adjacent to the existing roadway, and the Escher assessment asserts that no less environmentally damaging feasible location is available, and that the project is required to enhance safe driving conditions through the stretch of roadway. As a result, the project is consistent with the limited development allowances within or adjacent to wetlands and drainage Eschers. The Escher assessment relies on proposed avoidance and minimization measures to reduce impacts and to mitigate unavoidable impacts. Special condition 11 is included that specifically references sections of the Escher assessment and the environmental study and the revegetation plan and the rare plant memo and letter to ensure that the minimization measures included within each are included as part of the project implementation. The project plans and supporting documentation were supplied to CDFW for review and concurrence, since their concurrence is required when reducing a buffer to less than 100 feet. CDFW responded, essentially recommending that a revegetation and monitoring plan, which at the time was only recommended by the Escher assessment but had not yet been developed, be prepared for the project to revegetate impacts to Escher. Caltrans supplied the county with an on-site revegetation plan that was referred to CDFW for review, and CDFW responded that they had no comments or concerns related to the updated revegetation plan. CDFW also commented on the rare plant memo and letter addressing bodega morning glory and harlequin lotus, stating that CDFW believes the proposed avoidance and minimization measures appear sufficient to protect those Eschers. Again, special condition 11 references these measures within the various resource studies requiring Caltrans to implement the project consistent with these practices to ensure consistency with Escher policies and county code. Regarding access, the project is located on a stretch of Highway 1 adjacent to Navarro Point Preserve, a public coastal access area. At approximately post mile 41.85, a driveway extends westward from State Route 1 to an existing public access parking lot. The project would allow uninterrupted access to the Navarro Point Preserve through construction and therefore would not impact any existing public access points along Highway 1. The proposed project is exempt from CAL FIRE requirements and was exempt from submitting further geologic investigation due to Mendocino County Code Section 20.500, which requires geologic investigations only in areas of known or potential geologic hazards delineated on county hazard maps. The LCP land capabilities and hazards map shows the project outside of areas of known or potential geologic hazards, so no further investigation was required. Regarding grading, the project will result in an export of approximately 10,200 cubic yards of material. The applicant states that this will be hauled off-site to an approved disposal site under the responsibility of the contractor, which is a standard Caltrans practice. The assurance of appropriate export disposal is identified in Caltrans specifications and construction contract documents, and the contractor is required to furnish proof of compliance, which shall be provided to the county in addition to the Caltrans resident engineer, as recommended in condition 9. Further erosion control methods include hydroseeding with native species seed mix, consistent with the plan set, erosion control sheets. And erosion control planting will be implemented across the project area once construction is completed as delineated in the plan set. Further revegetation efforts will be implemented consistent with the on-site revegetation plan. An archaeological survey report for the project was completed in January 2018 and concluded that no new or previously identified resources are present within the area of potential effect, and the project has no potential to affect historic properties. On August 30th, 2021, Sonoma State's Northwest Information Center responded, stating that no additional studies were warranted, but did recommend the standard discovery clause and the county reach out to local Native American tribes regarding traditional, cultural, and religious heritage values. The tribes referred for comment from Mendocino County did not provide responses to the requests for comment. And with the Northwest Information Center's recommended conditions of approval, the project's consistent with the county's policies for protection of archaeological resources. The entire project is located in a mapped highly scenic area. Mendocino County Code requires that development in these areas limit development to less than 18 feet above grade, requires no development or new development be subordinate to the natural setting, and minimize reflective surfaces. The improvements included the installation of a Midwest guardrail system along the west side of the roadway. The proposed guardrail would be treated with a light brown stain to reduce glare and for the improvement to better blend with the natural surroundings and be consistent with county code requirements. The new development minimize reflective surfaces. The visual impact assessment submitted by Caltrans demonstrates that the guardrail will not be tall enough to block views from State Route 1 to the west. As a result, the project would be consistent with the development criteria for highly scenic areas in county code. Lands west of the roadway are designated tree removal areas. The proposed project includes the removal of up to 75 trees. County code includes the standards that in tree removal areas, tree thinning or removal shall be made a condition of permit approval when trees unreasonably obstruct views to and along the ocean and scenic coastal areas. Caltrans's submitted visual impact assessment demonstrates that the trees proposed for removal are currently obstructing views to and along the ocean. The proposed tree removal is therefore consistent with this policy intended to improve public views of the coast. For the purposes of CEQA, Caltrans is the lead agency, meaning Caltrans has the primary responsibility for carrying out or approving the project, and Mendocino County is a responsible agency. As lead agency, Caltrans determined the project is categorically exempt from CEQA under section 15301, class 1D, applying to restoration or rehabilitation of damaged facilities to meet current public health and safety standards. Caltrans's notice of exemption is included as attachment S. As a result of staff's analysis, the recommendation is that the Coastal Permit Administrator grant the requested CDP for the project as proposed by the applicant based on the facts and findings and subject to the conditions of approval. I'm available to help answer any questions, and I'm sure Caltrans is as well. Thank you.
I just have one comment to add. There was a memorandum posted for this item, and I want to be clear that memorandum didn't have any new information in it. Rather, staff noticed that somehow when the item was posted to our public webpage, a couple of the exhibit pages that include some of the conditions were blank. It was a very odd error because all the printed packets were correct. Mm-hmm. So staff prepared a memorandum just to include all of those, so that way they're available to the public, the CPA, and also to the applicant.
Thank you very much for that clarification. All right, so at this point, we've heard from staff, so I'm going to turn it over to Caltrans. Mr. Demling, if you have any opening comments or comments with regards to the staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Administrator. Yeah, again, Caltrans would like to start by thanking county staff for their comprehensive review of the application materials and for preparing a complete and factual staff report for this project. We agree with county's findings that the proposed development is in conformity with the certified local program, that the proposed development is consistent with the purpose and intent of the zoning district, and that the project would not have any significant adverse impacts on the environment within the meaning of the California Environmental Quality Act. We also concur with the county's findings that the proposed development would not have any adverse impact on any known archaeological or paleontological resources, and that the proposed development would not diminish public access to Mendocino County coastal areas, and also conforms to the goals and policies of the coastal element of the general plan. Also, we agree with county's findings that the proposed development is consistent with Escher policies that require the resources as identified will not be significantly degraded by the proposed development, and there is no feasible, less environmentally damaging alternative, and all feasible mitigation measures capable of reducing or eliminating project-related impacts have been adopted. We concur with the staff report, and we urge you, Mr. Administrator, to approve this permit. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and open it up to the public.
And we'll start with Jacob Patterson, followed by Norbert Dahl, Stephanie Dahl, and Anna Marie Weibel.
Thank you. And again, everyone has 3 minutes.
Right there, JP.
Keeps moving.
One down.
There you go.
Hi, it's Jacob Patterson. Again, the written comments I submitted already covered my concerns, and it was primarily about this permit and not the other one. Unlike the one you just approved, this project has more concerns, in my opinion, that although they have been studied and at least partially addressed, I certainly don't feel that the class 1 categorical exemption that has been applied to this project makes sense in this context. It's a significant expansion of the existing facility in the widening and all the grading work and the tree removal activities, and treating it as such, including all of the mitigation measures that have been implemented, suggests to me that it should have been processed with at least a mitigated negative declaration. The reason why I think that is important is it makes those mitigation measures much more enforceable rather than treating them just as code requirements and saying the project is exempt. I would also like to draw your attention to the letter submitted by the Coastal Commission staff raising specific concerns about a lack of specificity in certain areas. Those all relate to the same issues. So please pay attention to that letter in particular, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next.
Next, we have Norbert Dahl, followed by Stephanie Dahl and Anna Marie Weibel.
There's Norbert, there you go.
Once again, I was muted and had no information about that. Again, to begin, and presumably the clock only starts now. Thank you, Your Honor, Norbert Dahl, for adjacent property owners Hanson and ELAC. In the interest of time, we reincorporate here all of our comments on item 3C, and also incorporate the written comments submitted by adjacent property owner Jim Hyde, which together identified dozens of significant project impacts and inconsistencies with the LCP and Coastal Act, including their environmentally sensitive habitat, visual quality, landform stability, and public access recreation standards. And notably, many of these are based on Caltrans's own outdated and in parts incomplete technical studies. Our client requests that you deny the CDP application. Again, the application was withdrawn by operation of law in 2020 and is not before you. In addition, Caltrans has not presented a whole settled project. By that I mean its entire location, its scope, or the clearly LCP required geotechnical report of this known unstable landform. And again, significantly, relies impermissibly on an undisclosed offsite location to dispose more than half of the graded material from the protected Navarro Ridge landform. The staff report erroneously fails to identify that to do this project, Caltrans proposes to rely on 6 parcels that it has created without first getting the county's approval for that other division of land. Next, the staff report does not analyze all project components, including in one significant part, the 285-foot long fence by which Caltrans proposes to close off the entrance to the Navarro Point Preserve. The project report does not analyze known project alternatives that would reduce the identified significant impacts to the respective levels of significance below them. Likewise, as the previous speaker indicated, the categorical exemption on which Caltrans relies is not available for this project. And to conclude, the project is inconsistent with the Coastal Act public access and recreation policies, and the staff report makes no findings with regard to them. For all those reasons, Your Honor, we respectfully request that you deny this permit for cause. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, Stephanie Dahl, followed by Anne Marie Weibel and Jim Hyde.
Hyde,
sorry.
That's okay.
Ms. Dahl, you can unmute.
Yes, hold on just a moment. I'm sorry, I seem to have lost my comments here. Yes, this is Stephanie Dahl on behalf of Beverly Engelhardt, who is an adjacent property owner at the southern end of the proposed Navarro Ridge Safety Project. Her comments were submitted yesterday, and just in summary, as an observer of this stretch of highway for over 30 years, need for the project, first of all, is non-existent. And contrary to Mr. Demling's representations on the previous matter, Mrs. Engelhardt particularly, and it is my understanding, all of the people who are commenting on this particular project and the one before it have a high level of interest in maintaining Highway 1 as a safe passageway because it is their connection to the world. So the assertion that they're trying to make it unsafe and prevent Caltrans from engaging in safety protections for the traveling public is really unfair and inappropriate. There are a number of impacts related to this that have, been emphasized by Mr. Perkins' extended discussion of those environmental impacts, which give the lie to the assumption that the CEQA determination that this was a categorically exempt project, Caltrans can't rely on it, and the county as a responsible agency certainly cannot accept a categorical exemption on something that so flagrantly exceeds what is allowed under an exemption, both by its location and the number of impacts, including those that simply cannot be mitigated. Of particular concern, in addition to the impacts that are not being mitigated on scenic protection and the protection of both sensitive plants and fauna, is the fact that while it is not necessary, as Mr. Perkins pointed out, for a complete application to the I'm sorry?
30 seconds.
There are geologic studies that indicate that Caltrans's current design before the county requires additional geotechnical investigation to be able to finalize that design. And so the project that is before you right now is in all likelihood not going to be what can be built And I would advise you, I have sent you a copy of the last.
Time's up.
Next.
And then we have Anna Marie Weibel, followed by Jim Hyde. Okay, Ms. Weibel.
Hi, please deny this application. Okay, I'm hearing a feedback. The staff memorandum, the 19 pages were added less than 10 days before the hearing. I have not had time to read it. The project is incomplete, ambiguous, inaccurate. It needs an EIR. The exemptions don't work. It is one project, as mentioned before. There's only 0.05 miles separating these projects. Staging areas would be the same. Construction would most likely take the same time. Also, the cumulative effect of this project has to be looked at along all the other projects locally. The widening is a huge issue. The 12 feet each and 4 feet for the shoulders, that could, I'm sure, be cut down to only one shoulder, or have it not dig into the hill as much, and there could be alternatives to this. And so it's been cut up into little pieces and seeking permits on a piece-by-piece basis, because altogether it's a big issue and it really needs to be addressed by CEQA and NEPA, especially if federal money is involved and all that. This is the gateway to the coast. It's significant effect on the environment, a unique location, environmentally and economically crucial. The Mendocino Land Trust's preserve is an unspoiled coastal bluff with gorgeous view towards the west, and also the marine terrace, which would be deformed and scarred. The grading has not been addressed properly. We also found out from Glickfield's situation, and that coastal access trail needs to be in accordance with the Coastal Act. Drainage is an issue, but to have that many trucks load this material to an undisclosed location. So in closing, it is really would be a great detriment to this county, and it's not conforming with the goals and policies of the coastal element of the general plan. The rumble strips are not okay, and neither are.
Time's up.
Next speaker, please.
Will be Jim Hyde.
Yes, hello, good morning. Can you hear me?
You can.
All right, thank you very much. And thank you for the opportunity to speak this morning. I went into detail about my concerns over the safety project in the public comment letter that's been added to the record, but I just want to summarize 2 key points. First is that Caltrans' proposed project here is grossly out of scale and inappropriate for this location. Caltrans is trying to cram a very generic, freeway-like solution into a location that is far from generic. This location directly abuts the Navarro Point Preserve. Beautiful views of not only the ocean to the west, but also of a unspoiled coastal terrace, a natural landform to the east. The area east of the highway is a textbook coastal marine terrace, and Caltrans is proposing to utterly deform this marine terrace through a huge amount of grading and shaping. This protected location is also home to a lot of wildlife, especially protected birds of prey, including a nesting pair of peregrine falcons. My letter includes information from the Mendocino Coast Audubon Society regarding the documented foraging locations of these peregrine falcons. And those areas include both the area west and east of the highway. The area east of the highway is particularly important here because that's an area that Caltrans is proposing to carve out over 14,000 cubic yards of dirt. That's well over 1,000 full dump truck loads. The scope of grading here is also concerning because the soils in this exact area have been prone to slides, as I noted in my letter. Now, Caltrans may also promise a revegetation phase, but they do not have a great track record of keeping this promise. If you just look at the scar at the north end of the Albion River Bridge, you'll see what I mean. Now, finally, just to speak to the fact that Caltrans is proposing two supposedly different projects that are next door to each other, describing them as separate projects. Yeah, they're separate on paper, but let's get real. This is like saying I'm going to mow my front lawn and my back lawn on Saturday, but those are separate projects. No. It's happening at the same time frame. I'm going to use the same mower, and my neighbors are going to hear my mower all day long. That last part is a cumulative impact. Under CEQA and under common sense, the cumulative impact of these two projects must be considered.
3 seconds.
So to sum up, please, I respectfully ask you that you ask Caltrans to go back to the drawing board. Caltrans can do a better job of this. There are alternatives that don't require this degree of destruction of a protected area. Please require that Caltrans come up with a solution that is appropriate to this protected, highly scenic area. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers?
There is no other speakers.
No, okay, so I will return this back to the Coastal Permit Administrator. Question for staff or Caltrans, can you please address the question about the undisclosed location of where the material will be deposited?
So I think from staff perspective, we have condition of approval number 9 that's recommended by staff that would require that the contractor performing the work provide proof of evidence that they have disposed of the materials at an appropriate disposal site and provide that to the county as well as the Caltrans resident engineer.
Okay.
That's condition 9.
Condition 9.
If I could supplement that response, please. What I found in several instances is that if you specify a disposal location when contracts go out to bid, it pigeonholes contractors into that particular location, and contractors often have preferred and permitted and licensed location to remove this type of material. And it's common for construction projects to allow contractors to identify the locations to keep project costs down, as opposed for a permitter to prescribe those locations in advance. So that's just kind of my experience with these kinds of things.
Thank you, and that's understood because we won't really know until it actually goes out to bid. Thank you. So I think this condition addresses it. So are there any other comments from staff on this item?
Mr. Crowe, I've received 4 comments in the PBS website. Do you want
Additional comments
Do
during?
you want me to?
Are they from new public commenters?
No, but they're from people that have already spoken.
Okay, if you'll just provide the names and then we'll make sure those get posted here after the meeting.
One is Mr. Hyde.
Okay.
And
So
Mr. Jacob Patterson.
Can you actually read the names of the people that have submitted comments during the meeting for the record? Just,
Sure.
well, I don't need to hear what was submitted, I just need to know who submitted the comments during this meeting right now, if they've come in.
Oh, if they come in, so it's,
Yes.
okay, so we have Mr. Jacob Patterson, Mr. Dahl, Norbert Dahl, and Mr. Hyde, Jim Hyde, and those are the 3 that I've
3, and those will be posted to the website.
They will be posted to the website.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Demling, do you have any closing comments?
Mr. Administrator, same comments as before, especially with regards to this project is a single and complete project and has independent utility in that it would be constructed absent the construction of other projects in the area. This is a safety project. The previous project before you, Navarro Drainage, is a roadside betterment project. Both projects, as I mentioned, have independent utility and separate funding as well. aside from that, again, I have to go back to some of the comments that were provided by the Dahls, Jim Hyde, Amory Weibel. Again, they're biased and misleading, in my opinion, and without foundation, completely groundless, inaccurate, unscientific, and have no basis in fact or reality. We again urge the permit to be approved. I also want to address the letter that was, or email, I should say, that was submitted by the county and regarding by the Coastal Commission staff. We are disappointed that the coastal staff chose to wait until the 11th hour to provide those comments when they didn't see fit to respond to the agency referral letter that was sent back to them in August of 2021. It is worth mentioning also that Caltrans staff has met with coastal staff in the county on multiple occasions to discuss this project. The late submittal and nature of the comments made by Ms. Levette suggests that she may not have had sufficient time to review all the technical studies and application materials. However, in response to her comments, we offer the following. Overall, 20 Eschers were identified within 100 feet of project activities. Development would occur within 10 of the Eschers where buffers are infeasible. No development is proposed within wetlands or other waters, and reduced buffers are requested for 9 Eschers. No impacts to wetlands are proposed. There are man-made ditches that conveyed storm water runoff that are being impacted. Impacts to these are either offset at a 1-to-1 ratio, roadside ditches, or offset through culvert upsizing. The North Coast Water Board and California Department of Fish and Wildlife have both approved of the Re-Vegetation Plan for impacts. And the Mendocino County LCP indicates that the California Coastal Commission statewide interpretive guidelines, Appendix 8, defines jurisdictional wetlands, for which includes the following text. For the purpose of identifying wetlands using the technical criteria contained in this guideline, one limited exception will be made. That is, drainage ditches, as defined herein, will not be considered wetlands under the Coastal Act. A drainage ditch shall be defined as a narrow, usually less than 5 feet wide, man-made, non-titled ditch excavated from dry land. We are unclear on what impacts the wetland Escher Amber Ms. Levette is referencing in her comment. That is all I have, Mr. Administrator. Again, Caltrans urges the county to approve this important safety project. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Again, this is probably for staff on the last minute submittal from the Coastal Commission.
Mm-hmm.
Can you address that? They submitted something at the 11th hour?
Yes, they submitted a comment letter last night at 5 p.m. It arrived in our inbox, and it expressed 2 different concerns. One was related to suggesting that the county suss out a little bit more in the staff report discussion about wetland and wetland related impacts, and then secondarily looking at the visual impacts associated with the outfall pipes and any sort of culverts. And I don't know if Mr. Perkins has anything additional to add to that.
Sure. I think, Mr. Demling and Ms. Krog covered it pretty well, but yeah, the questions were about that. And I agree with Mr. Demling's assessment that some of the questions might indicate that they weren't provided adequate time to look at all of the materials or did not have adequate time to look at all the materials, because I think some of the answers to their questions are in the application materials. But if there's anything specific that you'd like us to dive into, be happy to try.
So my understanding that this application was filed back in 2019, and shortly thereafter, after the application is deemed complete, the project materials are forwarded to all the responsible agencies, and the Coastal Commission being one of them. So they've had this for how long?
Well, so they received an initial referral in 2019, then the project was revised, and they received a secondary referral in August of this year, so approximately 3 months.
So 3 months, the Coastal Commission has had this item, and only until the night before the hearing, they respond?
That's correct.
Unacceptable. I mean, it's just, Fish and Wildlife did respond, and they did provide comments
multiple times.
multiple times. And the Coastal Commission waits until the 11th hour. No.
I was grateful I was still here at 5 p.m. to see the letter
Yes.
come in.
Well, thank you for that. It's just a bad approach, you know. So, and I'm also going to assume that when Caltrans prepared their initial study and document and environmental determination, that was given a state clearinghouse number, and the Coastal Commission was given the opportunity to comment on that.
Yeah, we have evidence that it was filed with the state clearinghouse. Actually, attachment T to the staff report is the filed document and includes a stamp from the state clearinghouse demonstrating it was received March 21st of 2019.
Uh-huh.
As well as it has the state clearinghouse number at the top of it.
State clearinghouse number, the exemption, and again, the Coastal Commission could have commented on this.
That's correct.
As well. Well, that just, you know, tells me the Coastal Commission just waits because they don't review their materials in a timely manner. Okay, thank you very much, staff, Caltrans staff, for providing information. I will go ahead and return this back to the CPA, and based on the evidence provided here today, as well as the comments that were received and posted, I'm going to go ahead and move to approve this project pursuant to the findings contained in the staff report as well as the conditions of approval. And also, I will note that as far as the appeal process, persons who are dissatisfied with the decision of the Coastal Permit Administrator may appeal the action to the Board of Supervisors. An appeal must be made in writing along with the applicable fee to the clerk of the board within 10 days of the Coastal Permit Administrator's decision. The appeal issue will be placed on the next available Board of Supervisors agenda for consideration, and the appellant will be notified of the time and date. Appeals to the Board of Supervisors do not necessarily guarantee that the Coastal Permit Administrator's decision will be overturned. In some cases, the Board of Supervisors may not have the legal authority to overturn the decision of the administrator. I would also note that this item can be appealed directly to the Coastal Commission.
That's correct. So the appeal period with the Coastal Commission will kick in after the appeal period with the Board of Supervisors has concluded, and we receive a notification of appeal period from the Commission.
Thank you very much.
And if I may, just to clarify, since staff did prepare a memorandum just to ensure all the exhibits were available for the conditions of approval, I want to make sure that the memorandum dated November 12th is also included in your approval.
Yes, thank you, it is.
Okay.
And has been considered. All right. Thank you. And I'm going to take a 2-minute recess, and I will come back and pick up with case 3D. So 2-minute recess.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Oh, wait, one more. There we go.
All right, the CPA is now back in session at 10:42 a.m. And this takes us to item 3D, which is CDP 2020-0028. The owner applicant is Eric Christensen. Agent is David Springer. The request is a standard coastal development permit to convert an existing single-family residence into an office and construct a new single-family residence with an attached garage carport. The request also includes the construction of 2 small sheds, a ground mount solar array system, installation the installation of 2 5,000-gallon water storage tanks with 1 fire hydrant and an underground propane tank. Associated development includes removal of an existing septic system, establishes a primary septic system, and replacement septic area, the expansion of a paved driveway, including relocating entrance gate, trenching for underground utilities, and connection to the Elk County Water District. The temporary occupancy of the existing single-family residence while constructing the new residence is also included in this request. The project has been determined to be categorically exempt, or CEQA. The project is located in the coastal zone 1.5 miles south of the town of Elk Center, lying on the west side of State Route 1, located at 8,000 South Highway 1 in Elk. Assessor's parcel number 131-010-03. May I please get a staff report?
Yes, good morning, CPA Gonzalez. My name is Jessie Waldman, planner for Mendocino County. Yes, this coastal development permit, CDP 2020-028 for the Christensens, is to expand the existing development on the parcel. And as stated, there is multiple factors of development on this parcel, one of which is a temporary use of the existing single-family residence while doing construction for the new single-family residence. And that existing home will be turned into an office, a private personal office. There is extensive development proposed with the driveway, the sheds, the water storage, fire hydrants, and I will discuss that further on in my presentation. I would like to just describe the site a little bit and talk about the development and the past discretionary permits. So the parcel is roughly 12.9 acres in size, and it is located south of the town center of Elk on the west side of Highway 1. The site is currently, as mentioned, developed with the existing one-story single-family residence, a 2-story barn under the height of 18 feet, and ancillary development, including a gravel driveway, access from State Route 1, Highway 1, an on-site septic system and wire fencing, as well as an existing connection to the Elk County Water District. And the existing development was issued under 2 past coastal development permits, and I want to bring those up based on the conditions of approval from those past coastal development permits. In 1996, Coastal Development Permit 40-96 was approved with conditions to allow the conversion of an existing storage building to a 450 square foot single family residence. This is the office that is being proposed. This is the residence that will be temporarily used and then converted to an office under this coastal development permit. This past CDP from 1996 did have conditions of exterior finishes, lighting plans, and I will discuss those further in the visual resources part of this presentation. That same coastal development permit also required conformance for encroachment permits with Caltrans to upgrade, and that was to upgrade the access. That was done. And the last important item was a landscaping plan was included for maintenance of the landscaping to protect the development on this parcel, to protect screening of the structures from views from Highway 1. And those have been completed. A second coastal development permit, CDP 8399, was approved in 1999 with conditions to allow for the construction of a 2-story barn structure, and it also had requirements for tree planting to complement the landscaping plan in the previous CDP, as well as exterior finish conditions. There was no increase of water or septic capacity under that 1999 coastal development permit. And the proposed project has been intentionally sited on the parcel. So with the expansion of the driveway, the solar array, the new single family residence, the water storage tanks, the fire hydrants, the sheds, the accessory structures, the development has been intentionally sited to avoid impacts to environmentally sensitive habitat areas, ESHA, and it also all development is proposed more than 100 feet away from any ESHA boundary as specified in the ESHA survey provided by WRA Environmental Consultants, and also the WRA response to CDFW comments submitted to staff earlier this year, 2021. The habitat observed on the site, the study area on the parcel included 2 presumed ESHAs consisting of special status plants and special status animal species. Further, I'll talk about that further in the natural resources with my conditions of approval that are recommended. Also, a geotechnical investigation was conducted by Bauer Associates in 2020 and again in 2021, where a recommendation for a minimum of a 50-foot buffer setback be required for the bluff top. The project as proposed in the staff report is consistent with allowed residential development and allowed accessory uses associated with residential development per county policies in the coastal element. With added conditions, the proposed project is consistent with the zoning policies in the Mendocino County Code. And staff has recommended conditions 21 and 22 regarding the temporary use of occupancy of the existing home during construction of the new home for that to be converted to a private office. The parcel is mapped within a highly scenic area. And as previously stated, the previous coastal development permits have conditions of approval regarding exterior finishes, lighting plans, and landscaping plans. Those past coastal development permits were specific to specific colors, trims, shingles, materials, building materials when it comes to exterior finishes. And this proposed project under attachment M and K of this hearing packet proposed slightly different names and different materials, but colors that are still consistent with the 1999 approved exterior finishes, and condition 11 and 12 specifically for exterior lighting and exterior finishes. Staff has found them to be consistent and recommends that they be a part of their the approval of this project. Pause just for a moment. Regarding landscaping for the visual resources of this project, staff conducted a site visit at this parcel and the adjacent parcels, and based on review of the past coastal development permits and the proposed location of the new development, staff is recommending condition 13, and I would like to just talk about that for a moment, is that the new development would have additional trees planted, specifically in a 25-foot gap of vegetation that is parallel to Highway 1, that is located just north of the existing driveway between the power poles supplying utilities to the parcel and the proposed driveway extension. And this is because there is a gap in the vegetation along Highway 1. There would also be, there are also recommendations that additional landscaping be planted north and south of the proposed single-family residence to create a buffer for views to the house. They would not be creating an obstruction from Highway 1 to the Pacific Ocean, but they would also need to adhere to the Escher buffer setbacks as recommended in the WRA report, the Escher survey, as well as the setback recommendations in the Bauer Associates geotechnical report, and that is under condition 13. With those recommended condition, with that recommended condition of approval, this proposed project would not increase view obstruction from nearby public areas and will be visually compatible with the character of surrounding areas and be consistent with the county policies related to parcels within highly scenic areas, including protection of ocean views, natural settings, underground and overhead utilities. We'll pause right there. I failed to mention that the utilities that serve the parcel from Highway 1 are proposed to be put underground. So, to reiterate, regarding visual resources, with the recommended conditions of approval, staff finds the project is consistent with county policies. Regarding hazard management, the parcel is a bluff top parcel and it is mapped within a high fire hazard area. And again, Bauer Associates recommended the 50-foot setback from the bluff top edge, and all the proposed development is to be no closer than 105 feet from the bluff top edge, so therefore it is consistent. Condition 14 is recommending further conditions that the parcel and its foundation work and all grading for the driveway expansion, septic expansion, follow the recommendations within Bauer's report or by a qualified professional. Condition 14 will recommend that a deed restriction, which is part of the Mendocino County policies to protect any bluff top erosion, that is under condition 15, excuse me. Specifically, this parcel worked, the applicant, the owner and the agents worked very closely with the Elk Community Services District regarding fire access and resources. And that's where the two 5,000 gallon water tanks and 2 fire hydrants are proposed to satisfy the Elk CSD's recommendations. And condition number 16 is recommended that there be an inspection by the local fire agency to satisfy those. And I'm going to pause just for a moment, and I apologize about that. The Elk Community Services District will be conducting a site visit prior to final of the building permits for the development on this parcel to ensure that they have proper water and safety. That they have proper fire safety apparatuses on site.
And if I can ask, which condition is that? Because you cited 16 and that relates to the groundwater study.
So condition 16 is for both. One is for the fire and one is for water. I'm going to pause again, and I apologize about that, CPA Gonzalez. Groundwater is under condition 18.
Okay, thank you.
I apologize for the confusion.
Nope, you are correct. Thank you.
Okay, so just to recap on the hazards for bluff top analysis and for the high fire hazard area, condition 14, 15, and 16 are recommended by staff. And shall these be provided, this project would be consistent with the county policies for hazard areas, including geotechnical, faults, bluffs, tsunami, landslides, erosion, fire, and flood hazards. And then regarding the Escher and the habitats and natural resources, as previously mentioned, there were 2 presumed Eschers found on site by WRA, and that was the special status plants and special status animals, as well as recommendations for landscaping that was both, it's going to serve both as a visual resource protection and also as a Escher protection. So to clarify, within the WRA report, the plantings need to match the past coastal development permits mentioned. The landscaping plan also needs to match local native plants, and it needs to stay at least 100 feet away from the buffers from Escher as stated in the WRA report, and that is recommended under condition 13 on how to best provide that site, that landscaping plan is secure with the past coastal development permits and current Escher regulations. Condition 17 is recommended for the protection of special status plants and animals during and continued after construction for this proposed project. And shall those be followed, the proposed project will not significantly impact sensitive habitats or resources, and would be consistent with the county policies regarding Escher. Regarding grading, there was no proposed quantity of grading proposed in the application itself, but grading associated with typical construction of buildings, driveways, and improvements will be required to construct the proposed project. Condition 14 is recommended, requiring that the project have a detailed geotechnical investigation specific to foundations. I've already mentioned this under the hazards management, but it would need to adhere to Bauer Associates recommendations. It would also need to adhere to a qualified professional's analysis at time of the building permit. And then regarding groundwater resources, condition 18 is recommended to ensure that, and septic permits are required. There's 2 septic systems proposed. One is they're going to be abandoning the existing system, reestablishing that in a different area, and then a larger septic system for the new residents. And then those are subject to the Department of Environmental Health regulations, and as proposed, the project is consistent with county policies for groundwater resources. There is a will serve from the local water district that they do have water resources. Regarding archaeological and cultural resources, the project did have an archaeological survey report completed. It was accepted by the Mendocino County Archaeological Commission in May of 2021, and condition 9 is recommended to ensure the project remains consistent with county policies for the protection of archaeological resources. Regarding transportation and circulation, the project was referred to California Department of Transportation, Caltrans, where Caltrans recommended that the current landowners apply for a record-keeping permit to identify responsibility of the driveway encroachment within the state highways right-of-way. The agent and owner have begun that process. The Caltrans also recommended replacement of an existing access gate with a fence, and that access gate is at the southeast corner of the parcel. So that gate will need to be converted back to a fence per the recommendations of Caltrans. And then any work within Caltrans right-of-way would require a Caltrans permit. And then condition 19 is recommended to ensure that current landowners' information is updated with Caltrans, and that would be through the process of a recommended deed restriction, so that any future transfer of title or ownership, the new landowners are aware to update the information with Caltrans. And then the project would remain consistent with the county policies regarding transportation, utilities, and public services. And then regarding public access, there's no impact to existing public access, and the nearest public access to the shore is located at the Elk Creek shoreline access to the south on the west side of Highway 1, and this project would be consistent with county policies regarding coastal shoreline access. The project was determined to be categorically exempt from CEQA under Class 3 for single-family residence, as well as accessory structures, including the office. And the project is found to be consistent with findings required per Mendocino County Code. That presents my presentation. And should you have any questions, I am here to assist. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So do we have the applicant or applicant's agent on the line?
Yeah, both.
All right.
I'll bring them both in.
Bring them both in.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Go right ahead.
Yes. Hi. I'm the project architect, David Springer. The agent could not make that, and I'm here to answer any questions or to I could give a little feedback. I think this was a multi-layer project because it was a multi-layer previous CDPs, and I think all parties did a really pretty decent job on trying to protect the resource bases of the site, at the same time to allow a new residence to be developed in something that would be respectful. And I also want to say, I think this was, I think Jesse's staff did a fabulous job at, I want to say, interconnecting all these overlays that needed to take place. I think, and therefore, I don't have anything else to add. I think we have been through this for many, many months, trying to get all the consultant work in order. And with that, I appreciate the work. I just always wish things could move faster, but that's my tendency in the permit process, which we all probably wish they could. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see Mr. Christensen is on the line. Is there anything you would like to add?
Hi, thank you for the opportunity. I also want to extend my thanks to Jesse Wadman and the planning department to, on their attention and the review of the project and keeping it moving along. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Do we have any members from the public that wish to speak on this item?
None on this.
Not on this one. All right. So with that, I'll bring it back to the Coastal Permit Administrator. And yes, I will commend Jesse. This was a very detailed application, very weighty packet. Thank you very much. And you covered all the bases on this. Thank you. So with that, seeing no members from the public and no objections, I'm going to go ahead and move to approve CDP 2020-0028 and per the findings contained in the staff report as well as the conditions contained in the staff report. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. This brings us to our next and final item is CDP 2021-0005. The owner applicant is the Mendocino County Department of Transportation. This is a request for a standard coastal development permit request to replace a minor stream crossing culvert on Bryceland Road, which suffered damage during the February 2019 storm event. The project is determined to be categorically exempt. The location of the project is within the coastal zone, 27 miles west of Garberville along Bryceland Road at mile marker 5.81 and at mile marker post 6.20. No address is given. Assessor's parcel number is APN 052-140-005. May I please get a staff report?
Good morning, Coastal Permit Administrator. Planner Juliana Cherry. It's my pleasure to present this County Department of Transportation project with a recommendation for approval. Yeah, the project is 27 miles west of Garberville, which is not in Mendocino County, but the project site is. It's in our Lost Coast area along the slopes that go down to Usal Beach. It's very remote. It took me 12 hours to go and post and come back. But what a lovely day that included a couple of hours of hiking, as the road is really the county road. Bryceland Road, or County Road 435, is really compacted dirt and a compacted rock. It's I went in the winter time and it just rained and the road just really didn't look reliable for me to drive the entire distance, and it didn't look like the road was wide enough for turning around in. So we parked just at the beginning of the Siskiyou State Park and walked down to the project site to post. So the applicant's statement really describes in great detail the project description. As you mentioned in your introductory comments, the project does include replacing a culvert. So if I may, at each of the two slide failures, there are two, the proposal is to construct a soldier pile wall at post mile 5.81. It's 119 feet long. And at post mile 6.20, a 44-foot long with timber logging and tiebacks. The timber logging and tiebacks is what the other slopes along Bryceland Road are using to retain and stabilize the road. So the type of soldier pile wall is often seen in other areas of Bryceland Road. The surface of the road with aggregate base, which is what is there today in other areas of Bryceland Road, trench on the upslope side of the road to intercept groundwater, install an under drain and backfill a trench with drained rock. A post mile 5.9, an unmanned intermittent creek passes under the road through a 20-foot by 30-inch corrugated metal pipe. This culvert is considered undersized, and the county requests to upsize the 30-inch diameter corrugated metal pipe to a 36-inch reinforced concrete pipe. That area at post mile 5.81, it's just past, there is a marker for 5.75. There is a sharp bend in the road, which is associated with a gully. There's clearly water that travels under the road that goes down this gully. It's really a steep area and the road is cut into it. So our mapping for this area of our county is rather limited. It's really an undeveloped area. It's mostly state parks lands. It includes some trails, some roads for access. And it's mostly zoned open space, and it's entirely within the appeal jurisdiction for the California Coastal Commission. which means that after the county has concluded their action, there is an additional 10-day appeal period with the California Coastal Commission. And notice will be provided for that. So in this rural area, our mapping really doesn't describe like tsunami hazards or very many erosion hazards, and yet the slopes are steep and there are lots of opportunities for rainwater to follow the slopes and be a source of erosion. And this winter storm a couple of years ago caused erosion, and the slopes around Bryceland Road have failed. So the county is asking with this coastal permit to do these repairs and improve the stability of the road. This road, Bryceland Road, County Road 435, is contiguous with a coastal access route that goes from the full length of Bryceland Road and down to the beach. It's very steep. I actually, after walking 5 miles downhill, I really didn't want to walk the whole distance down to the beach, despite how beautiful it sounded. So as you may be aware, county roads are not assigned a zoning or general plan designation, but the surrounding lands to county road are, and the surrounding lands are designated open space. So we do have open space policies relating to that. And I wanted to specifically mention one about Coastal Policy 3.1-12 about vehicle traffic, because this location does have riparian habitat. It definitely has water flowing through it. In wetlands and riparian areas, vehicle traffic shall be confined to roads. So in this particular instance, where the project is proposed to do repair within the buffer for an Escher or within the Escher itself, the road repair and maintenance of the road is something that our local coastal program allows for, and our zoning ordinance also mentions as something that is allowed for. We do have several policies for this particular area specific to the Siskiyou Wilderness State Park, where the road is located and the repair will occur. And those are listed on page 3 of the staff report. Regarding grading, erosion, and runoff, staff is recommending conditions 10, 11, 12, and 13. These 4 conditions really restate our zoning regulations for grading, erosion, runoff, and stormwater prevention. And I felt that this was really suited because of the site's topography. And so as the applicant, the Department of Transportation goes forward with the project and works on it, they will be required, as all others are, to conform with our grading, erosion, and runoff regulations. So habitats and natural resources. This year, the planning staff and the Department of Transportation staff and staff from California Department of Fish and Wildlife have all visited the site. The California Coastal Commission staff declined visiting the site, and I can certainly understand why, given the travel time to get there. And but the site has not had a completed botanical survey report. What the applicant has done is they have applied for a stream bed alteration agreement with CDFW. And as part of visiting the site, the CDFW staff assessed the extent of the natural habitat there and made recommendations under the stream bed alteration agreement, which the county has agreed to. Staff is asking that the Coastal Permit Administrator find that this effort on behalf of county staff and CDFW staff and the conditions of the stream bed alteration agreement be sufficient to satisfy our concerns regarding protection of habitat and natural resources. I would note that the streambed alteration agreement includes several measures that are frequently adopted by the coastal permit administrator to protect natural habitat and to avoid impacting them. And it is attached to the staff report as an exhibit, and there are conditions relating to this in the staff report as well. As mentioned, section 20.496.020A4E, development is permitted within the buffer area only if there's no other feasible site available on the parcel. And here the road is existing. We're not asking to realign the road. There's no proposal to change the configuration of the road. It is to repair a road failure, and that traffic would be limited to the road. And part of the traffic would include people enjoying the coastal access route that is contiguous with Bryceland Road. So there is no feasible alternative location for the road given the topography. And then also on page 5 of the staff report, I reference another section of our code, and just to restate that development within wetlands is limited to incidental public service purposes that temporarily impact a resource. And here we are repairing a road which does provide a public service and access to our beautiful shoreline areas. And we have a similar requirement for riparian areas that's mentioned on page 5 of the staff report. So hazards management, a geotechnical report was not submitted with the application, but it is an area of erosion. Some analysis at the time that the work is being implemented so that the contractor can be assured that they're meeting not only our grading, erosion, and runoff requirements, but also limiting risks for hazards is how staff is recommending this project be approved. Regarding visual resources, special communities, and archaeological resources, this project was considered by the Archaeological Commission, and Condition 8, which is frequently adopted, is recommended here. While this is not a highly scenic area, it is a special treatment area because the road goes through a state park. And so there is a requirement for a minimum buffer area, and the road the project is really limited to the width of the road, which is about 12 feet. I would also like to, I added 2 sections to the staff report because of the kind of project that we're looking at, the repair of a county road in a state park, shoreline access, trailway, and bikeway system. We do have goals and policies relating to that. There are many trails up here in the Lost Coast area. And as I've mentioned throughout this presentation, Bryceland Road is one of those trails. Usel Road is another. And in the staff report, I do list the trails and some of the destination points. It really is a terrific opportunity to see rural Mendocino County. I kind of want to underscore rural because so much of the county is rural, but this is also remote, and you're not going to be seeing very much development, if any, as you're hiking through the Siskiyou wilderness. And then on page 7 of the staff report, I discuss our goals and policies relating to recreation and visitor serving facilities, as Bryceland Road provides access to camping opportunities in this area. So while the project itself doesn't propose camping or other types of visitor serving facilities, it provides access so that the public can enjoy Mendocino shore lands and these beautiful slopes that include redwood trees and just a huge variety of habitat as you walk from up above down to the beach. The county did prepare, the Department of Transportation did prepare for their project a Class 2 exemption, and staff is in support of using that Class 2 exemption under CEQA for the proposed project. There are 8 recommended findings in the staff report, and the project does support Coastal Element Policy 3.1-12, which I mentioned initially with the beginning of the presentation. This limits vehicle access in riparian and wetland areas to existing roads. It supports Coastal Element Policy 3.6-4, which encourages the county to clean and maintain access ways open to public use. And as the road repairs will restore an existing coastal access trail, Bryceland Road, Coastal Trail, and County Road 435. I do want to note again that rights-of-way are not classified or assigned zoning districts. As proposed, the project does provide access to Needle House Rock and coastal access trails, including the Bryceland Coastal Trail, which is the intent of the open space classification of adjacent lands in the coastal zone. The project satisfies all the other requirements and provisions of Division 2. Oddly, while we do have the State Route 1 study for vehicle use and capacity, this project does not access State Route 1. So we do not have road capacity studies for Bryceland Road or the area that Bryceland Road connects to, which would be in Humboldt County. But it does provide coastal trail access, which is part of the public services that we look at when we make findings, like finding number 6. I think finding number 7 is just kind of restating things a little differently than the other findings that I prepared. And then finding 8, we are recommending establishing a 100-foot buffer from the proposed work. The work would occur within the buffer or within the ISHA itself, although I want to reiterate that our policies do allow for road repair and limiting vehicles to roads within ISHA and ISHA buffers. I have recommended, I think I prepared 16 conditions for your consideration, and I've talked about most of them during staff's presentation, so I won't go over them again, but I wanted to say that the Board of Supervisors has asked us to consider water use when taking an action on permits and entitlements. So condition 16, I looked at our groundwater study from 1982 and looked to see if there were any recommendations in here that might be appropriate for the Department of Transportation to implement with the approval of this project. I felt that 3 might be appropriate. 1, that new development shall be required to incorporate proven water conservation technology in the planning and construction of the project. That the Department of Transportation preserve existing natural drainage areas and encourage the incorporation of natural drainage systems in new development. This would include groundwater recharge. And then floodplains and aquifer recharge areas, which are the best sites for groundwater recharge, should be preserved as open space, which is the case here because all of the lands are open space. I did review all of these conditions with Chris Collins, who is staff at the Department of Transportation this week. And I understand from speaking with him, he did want me to be clear that soldier piles would be part of the scope of work. And otherwise, the findings and the conditions were acceptable to him at the time that we talked. I am here to help with any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So with that, I'd like to hear if Mr. Collins has any comments or would like to provide any comments to the CPA? Mr. Collins, please unmute, and do you have any comments regarding this item?
He may need instruction because he could be on the phone and not on Zoom.
You have to star 9, Mr. Collins, to release the mute if you are on a phone. Or star 6, sorry. Star 6.
Doesn't appear that he's at his computer or on the phone.
If you like, I'll send Chris a quick IM.
Not necessarily. Again, mostly concerned if there was any comments that he had, but it sounds like staff has already discussed this with the Department of Transportation.
Did.
Right.
I talked with them, I believe, on Wednesday last week or Monday this week.
With that, I'm going to bring it back to the CPA. Do we have anybody signed up for telecomment on
We
this?
do not have any telecom on this.
All right. I will bring it back to the CPA. And I have reviewed the staff report, the evidence, and all the materials. And thank you very much for attaching the California Department of Fish and Wildlife 1600 permit stream alteration agreement. That really, added to the details. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and approve the project subject to the findings and conditions contained in the staff report. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that.
So with that, do we have any matters from staff?
We have no matters from staff today.
Thank you very much. So with that said, we already had moved item number 4 to the beginning, which was item number 5, matters from the public. So that was moved to item number 3. And so that brings us to item number 6, which is the adjournment. And let the record show that 11:30 a.m. The meeting is adjourned.